Hey there fellow exiles, welcome to a slightly different video. This one's going to be really short and there's not going to be any gameplay. It's more of an explanation of a theory and a way to essentially make the build much tankier than it already was. Not that the build really needed it, but hey, if you die to less things, who doesn't love that? So this video is going to be about explaining some potential immortality against hits. So you will still die to damage over time with this deck, but for hits specifically, you will pretty much not die to anything in the game other than very big one-shots. I'm also going to be explaining a change to the endgame weapon actually because of these reasons, so definitely stay tuned to figure out exactly what that is as well. I'll be linking this BOB in the description so you guys can check it out. This is basically the old BOB except edited with the new setup. So what do I mean by immortality tech and how do we get it? So when I say immortality tech, I mean basically every single hit that is dealt against us is going to do no damage unless it's a one shot, which means it bypasses our max hit. Because our max hit is extremely high, this means most things in the game will never be able to actually do any damage to us. So how does that work? Well, this patch added a new jewel called Blood Notch. Blood Notch recovers 40 to 60% of life instantly whenever you take damage from a stunning hit. So typically this won't work for most things because you don't get stunned that much, and if you're getting stunned every hit, that's a problem. So how do we get stunned every hit and how do we stop that from happening? Now credit to Ali for figuring this out, and I think I saw a video on Reddit as well, but the immutable force jewel gives us such a large amount of stun and block recovery that you essentially don't feel the stun, or like it doesn't affect you. It essentially means stun has zero effect on you. However, you still do get stunned. But the problem is, now how do you make sure every hit stuns? For that we're using Gluttony. It's kind of funny to me that our endgame belt is now a Gluttony instead of a Stygian Vice with CDR and Flask effect. However, it actually makes a lot of sense for this. Because it sets our energy shield to 0, we can use the energy shield mastery to make stun threshold based on our energy shield instead of life. This means we can set our stun threshold to 0, making every single hit against us stun. Because every single stun doesn't actually have any effect, we're constantly gaining the benefit of Blood Notch, which means we're recovering about 60% of our life every time we get hit with a max roll Blood Notch, and we always get stunned, since Gluttony sets our energy shield to 0. So that's the deck for recovering life. But how does that mean immortality? So here's the thing. Flaskfinder, our version of Pathfinder, gets a lot of Flask effect. And our Progenesis currently has 70% Flask effect. Now with a max rolled Blood Notch, you can get 60% life recovery instantly when you get hit, which means you still need to mitigate 40% of that hit. With 60% increased Flask effect for unique flasks, Progenesis mitigates 40% of damage and deals it over time. To get the 60% threshold and then to furthermore hit 70, we need to use a Crucible Staff. This is a Crucible Staff I am in the process of currently crafting. I currently have 3 out of 4 of these mods. I am fishing for the +1 gems, but essentially you want cooldown recovery rate, more cast speed, +1, but the most important mod here is the flasks applied to you have 15% increased effect. That one mod pushes Progenesis past the 60% flask effect modifier threshold, which means that it will mitigate the remaining damage that isn't being instantly recovered by Blood Notch. Because it'll mitigate 40% of your damage over time, 40 to 43, 60% to 70% flask effect respectively. That essentially means you have 100% damage reduction because Progenesis is additive with Blood Notch. Now, the 100% damage reduction does not apply to one-shots because Blood Notch is recovery. While it is instant recovery, this means anything that doesn't one-shot you will basically heal you for 60% of the damage taken, which is full since Progenesis is taking the other 40% over time. It does not mean it'll save you against one-shots, so it's still important to have a very large maximum hit pool. In addition to this, now we have the problem of solving. How do we solve the Progenesis damage taken over time? Because it still deals 40% of the damage taken over time. Progenesis occurs over 4 seconds, we have the additional benefit of recoup also occurring over 4 seconds. That means if we can get 40% of damage taken is recouped, then essentially we can completely mitigate the damage over time portion of Progenesis. So that recoup can be gained with 2 T1 perfectly rolled mods on 2 iolite on 2 rings of any kind with life modifier effect. So we can get essentially 18 plus 18, which is 36% recoup on both of our rings, and then we can take 1 point on the tree for another 6%, putting us at 42% of damage taken over time is recouped. With a 70% Progenesis, we have approximately 43% of damage is taken over time, which means essentially, I'm not sure, again, I'm not 100% sure about this, but essentially if you're taking 1% of that damage over time, I don't think that'll be a big deal, but if it does end up being a problem, you might have to invest a second point in this wheel. In that case, you probably go for all 3 points and then maybe drop a ring. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the deck. I haven't personally tested this, so I'm not sure about exactly how effective it is, and I can't be sure about exactly how consistent it is either. So yeah, I'm just leaving that as a warning out there. I have seen others test it, and it seemingly does work, but until I've tested it for myself, I can't 100% know for sure that this is extremely powerful. And I also don't know if it's going to get patched out. This seems incredibly broken because, I mean, essentially it means you're taking no damage from hits, and with a hit pool like this, you can tank most things in the game. Again, Shaper Slam is no big deal even on Uber. You completely tank a Shaper Slam. We can probably tank something like an Eater Beam, and I don't think that I personally think this might get patched out. I'm not 100% sure, but that remains to be seen. So I'm gonna leave this BOB down in the description. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you think of this deck. Is it too broken? Should it be patched out? Leave a comment down below. And yeah, that's it for today's video. I'll catch you guys later, and yeah, peace.